The night was silent, but inside the small house, screams echoed like thunder. "Emily, you are a mistake we never wanted." "Susan," her mother shouted, her voice cold like a knife. Emily froze near the door, her small hands shaking. She was only 9. Her eyes filled with tears that burned like fire. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her father, Robert, sat on the sofa with a bitter face. "I told you, Susan," her mother. "This girl will never achieve anything in life. Look at her, useless." Her brother Ethan laughed from the hallway. Her sister Olivia rolled her eyes and whispered, "Pathetic little girl." That night, a small part of Emily's heart died. Emily grew up in a home where love existed for everyone, except her. Her mother Susan adored Ethan. "My brilliant son," she always said. Ethan got the best clothes, the best food, the warm hugs. Her father Robert admired Olivia. "My shining daughter," he said with a proud smile. Olivia was treated like a princess, always praised for her beauty and charm. But when it came to Emily, everything changed. She was treated like an extra shadow, a burden nobody wanted. If she spilled a glass of water, she got slapped. If Olivia broke something, they laughed and said, "Oh, she's just playful." When Ethan failed a test, Susan made him hot chocolate and said, "It's okay, sweetheart, you'll do better next time." But when Emily brought home good grades, Susan barely looked at the paper. "You just got lucky," she said coldly. She never felt like a daughter. She felt like an outsider in her own home. The only person who held her hand through the storm was Aunt Maggie. Maggie was Susan's elder sister. She didn't live in the same house, but she visited often. She always looked at Emily with warm, kind eyes. "Don't believe what they say," Maggie whispered to her once, kneeling to meet her eyes. "You are not useless, Emily. You're stronger than all of them." Emily didn't believe her back then. But those words became a seed planted deep inside her soul, a seed that would grow into something powerful one day. Ethan, the brother, was everyone's pride. Handsome, charming, spoiled. He played football, skipped homework, and still got treated like a king. Whenever he did something wrong, Susan and Robert made excuses for him. Olivia, the sister, was cruel in a soft voice. She always found ways to make Emily feel worthless. She would whisper insults, call her names, laugh behind her back. At family dinners, she would roll her eyes whenever Emily tried to speak. "Nobody cares about what you say," she'd sneer. Emily felt invisible, a ghost walking inside a house that was supposed to be her home. But she kept going. Every night, she cried in silence on her small bed. She pressed her face into the pillow so no one would hear her sobs. She dreamed of a world where she could be loved. She dreamed of running away, but for now, she was stuck. On her 10th birthday, Susan organized a big party. But not for Emily. It was for Ethan's football win. Emily sat in a corner wearing a plain dress while Ethan cut the cake and everyone cheered his name. She looked at the candles, wishing someone would look at her the same way, even just once. When it was Olivia's birthday, the house filled with pink balloons and shiny ribbons. Olivia received expensive gifts. Everyone laughed and danced. But on Emily's birthday, Susan made soup and said, "We can't waste money on useless things." Emily smiled weakly and whispered, "It's okay," though her heart bled. She learned to keep her pain hidden. She learned to walk quietly so no one could call her a burden. She learned to smile even when it hurt. One afternoon, Maggie found Emily sitting under a tree behind the house, crying softly. "Why are you crying, sweetheart?" Maggie asked, sitting beside her. Emily wiped her tears quickly. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," Maggie said gently. "Tell me." Emily hesitated, but then whispered, "Why do they hate me?" Maggie's heart broke. She wrapped her arms around Emily. "They don't hate you because of who you are. They hate you because they're blind to your worth." Emily sniffled. "I wish I could be like Ethan and Olivia. They are loved." "No," Maggie said firmly. "Don't wish to be like them. One day, you'll shine brighter than all of them. I promise." Emily didn't know if she could believe it. But she held on to those words like a tiny flame in the dark. In middle school, Emily got her first award. She had worked hard on a science project, nights without sleep, hours alone in the library, her little hands shaking as she built her model. She stood on the school stage, holding the golden certificate. It was the first time she felt proud of herself. The teacher clapped. Her classmates cheered. She waited for someone from her family to show up. No one came. When she got home, she held the certificate up for Susan to see. Susan didn't even look. "You should have been helping me in the kitchen," she said. Robert grunted from the couch. "That's nothing. Ethan won a football match last week. That's real success." Olivia laughed and said, "Science nerd. Who cares?" Emily went to her room. She pressed the certificate against her chest and cried. That day, she learned something that burned into her soul. No matter what she achieved, it would never be enough for them. But inside, another seed of strength began to grow. A quiet, silent whisper. One day, they'll see. As Emily grew older, the gap between her and her family became deeper. Ethan started hanging out with rich kids. He came home late, but Susan always said, "He's a boy. Boys are free." When Emily came home just 10 minutes late after school, Susan screamed at her, "You're a disgrace." Olivia joined college and started posting glamorous photos online. She got all the attention, all the compliments. Emily wore simple clothes, studied hard, worked part-time at the library. Every time Olivia saw her books, she mocked. "You think being smart will make you loved? Wake up, Emily. You'll always be the useless one." Robert never defended her. Susan never hugged her. The house felt like a cage, but Aunt Maggie always believed in her. She helped Emily with her studies, gave her old clothes, saved her a little money. "Don't lose hope," she would say. "The world is bigger than this house." The worst night of Emily's teenage life came at 17. It was a cold winter night. Ethan had crashed Robert's car while driving drunk. But when the police came, Susan pointed at Emily and shouted, "She took the car." Emily's body froze. "What? No. I wasn't even." "Shut up." Susan screamed. "You're always causing trouble." The police didn't arrest her because a neighbor confirmed Ethan was driving. But the damage was done. Robert slapped her across the face. Olivia called her a liar. Ethan smirked from the corner. That night, Emily packed her small bag and almost left. But Maggie stopped her. "You're not running away," Maggie whispered. "You'll build a life so big. They'll regret every word." Emily looked at her with tearful eyes. "How?" "You'll see," Maggie said. One day, Emily graduated high school with top grades. She applied for scholarships, determined to get out of that house. Nobody in her family congratulated her. Ethan was still praised for being the man of the house. Was still treated like a princess, but Emily had something they didn't. Fire. She got accepted into a good university with a full scholarship. Maggie helped her pack her bags. On the day she left, Susan only said, "Don't embarrass us." Robert didn't even say goodbye. Ethan and Olivia laughed as she walked out, but Emily didn't cry. Not this time. She looked at their faces and whispered in her heart, "One day, you'll beg to stand at my door." University life was not easy. She had no money. She worked part-time at a coffee shop, cleaned tables, saved every dollar. At night, she studied hard, sometimes until her eyes burned. She failed many times. She cried alone in her small apartment. But she never gave up. She remembered Susan's voice calling her useless. She remembered Ethan laughing, Olivia mocking, Robert ignoring. That pain became her weapon. Every tear she cried became a brick in the wall she was building. A wall between her and her past. She didn't need their love anymore. She needed to win. In her second year, Emily got an internship at a marketing firm. It was small, but for her, it was gold. She worked like fire, early mornings, late nights, no complaints. Her boss noticed her. "You're different," he said. "You work like someone who has something to prove." She smiled. "I do." Emily didn't tell him about her past. She didn't tell anyone. But inside, she carried every insult like a blade, not to cut herself, but to carve her own empire. Meanwhile, back home, her family rarely spoke to her. Ethan wasted his life on parties. Olivia was chasing fame online. Robert and Susan still believed Emily was the weakest. But slowly, things began to change. Emily started earning. She started getting recognition at work. Her name was on small project banners. Her boss gave her more responsibility. People respected her. For the first time, when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the useless child anymore. She saw power. She saw the woman she was becoming. One night, sitting in her little apartment with Maggie on a video call, she said something she had never said before. "Maggie," she whispered, "I will never forgive them." Maggie was quiet for a moment. "You don't have to," she said gently. "But promise me one thing. Don't let their darkness destroy your light." Emily nodded. "I'll build a life so bright they'll go blind trying to look at it." And at that moment, her revenge began. Not loud, not messy, but quiet like a rising storm. Emily stood in front of the tall glass building, the sunlight reflecting on its silver walls. She took a deep breath and held the ID card that hung around her neck. It had her name on it, Emily Carter, and beneath it, the words, "Senior Project Manager." Her hands trembled, but not out of fear. Out of power. The same girl who once cried alone in a cold house was now standing where thousands dreamed to be. She remembered the past like it was yesterday. Susan's harsh voice, Robert's silence, Ethan's laugh, Olivia's mockery. Those memories didn't hurt anymore. They burned like fuel in her veins. Emily wasn't the useless child anymore. She had become something they never believed she could be. And this was only the beginning. Emily's hard work had paid off faster than she imagined. After graduating, she got hired full-time at the same company where she interned. While others celebrated weekends, Emily worked. While others rested, she learned. She didn't have anyone to cheer for her, so she became her own cheerleader. Year after year, she climbed higher. She learned how to lead teams, negotiate deals, and take bold decisions. She saved every penny, refusing to live in the shadows of her past. Every late night was a piece of her revenge. Every award was a slap on the faces that once called her useless. People at the company respected her, not just for her skills, but for her strength. They called her the girl who never breaks. No one knew the fire that built her. No one saw the little girl who was once humiliated by her own family. But Maggie knew. Maggie always knew. One Sunday morning, Maggie visited her new apartment. It wasn't small anymore. Emily had bought a spacious modern flat with white walls, soft lighting, and elegant furniture. It smelled of fresh roses and success. Maggie looked around and smiled proudly. "You did it, sweetheart." Emily hugged her tightly. "No, Maggie. We did it." Maggie laughed softly. "I only gave you a little love. You built the rest with your own hands." Emily looked out the wide window at the shining city below. "I'm never going back to them, Maggie. Never." Maggie placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to. One day they'll come to you." Emily's eyes narrowed. "And I'll be waiting." Back in the old house, things were changing, not for the better. Ethan, who was once the golden boy, had failed to build any real career. He spent most of his time with friends, showing off money he didn't earn. Robert grew tired of his reckless behavior, but Susan always defended him. "He's just going through a phase," she said. But that phase became their nightmare. Ethan lost money. He borrowed from people he shouldn't have. He started missing payments. One day, men came to their door, men who didn't knock politely. Susan cried. Robert shouted. Ethan hid. The golden boy's crown had fallen. Olivia, too, faced her downfall. Her social media life was full of fake smiles and perfect filters, but reality was different. Her so-called influencer dream wasn't paying the bills. She had no real skills, no stable job, no savings. She had always believed her looks would open doors. But doors didn't open. They slammed shut. At night, when no one saw her, Olivia stared into the mirror, terrified of how much she had lost. Robert had retired earlier than planned, believing Ethan would soon take care of everything. But Ethan couldn't even take care of himself. Susan, who once ruled the house with a sharp tongue, now sat quietly in the living room, counting overdue bills. The house that once echoed with laughter for Ethan and Olivia now echoed with fear. And through it all, not once did they think of Emily. Not yet. At work, Emily was chosen to lead a major campaign. Millions of dollars. A chance to prove herself to the entire industry. It wasn't just a job. It was her moment. When she walked into the boardroom with her team behind her, everyone fell silent. She wore a black suit, sharp, powerful, elegant. Her confidence filled the room. Her boss introduced her. "This is Emily Carter, the one who built this project from scratch." The applause was loud, and in the middle of that applause, Emily's heart whispered, "Susan, Robert, Ethan, Olivia. This is what your useless child became." Months passed. Emily's face appeared on a magazine cover. She was praised as one of the top rising professionals in her industry. Maggie proudly kept a copy on her kitchen counter. But Susan, she found out differently. One of Susan's old friends from church came to visit. "Your daughter is amazing," she said with a bright smile. "I saw her in the news. She's so successful." Susan's face froze. "What?" "Yes," the woman continued. "She works at a big company. I didn't know you raised such a star." Susan forced a smile, but inside, something cracked. For years, she had called Emily a burden. Now the world was calling her brilliant. Robert, sitting nearby, lowered his newspaper slowly. Ethan and Olivia exchanged silent looks. For the first time in years, they remembered Emily. That night, Susan picked up her phone. Her hands shook. She hadn't called Emily in years. She had no idea what to say. When Emily answered, her voice was calm. "Hello." Susan forced a soft tone. "Emily, sweetheart. How are you?" The word sweetheart tasted fake. Emily stood by her window, looking at the glowing city. Her heart didn't race. It didn't ache. It was steady, controlled. "I'm fine," she replied flatly. Susan hesitated. "We saw the news. Your father and I are so proud of you." Emily didn't answer. Susan continued, "Maybe you could come visit us sometime. It's been so long." Emily's lips curved into a cold, emotionless smile. Years of silence. Years of pain. Now suddenly they remember me? "I'm busy," she said, and hung up. Susan stared at the phone in disbelief. For the first time, she realized Emily wasn't waiting for them anymore. Weeks later, Ethan showed up at Emily's office. Not at the front desk. He waited outside the building like a lost child. When Emily walked out with her team, dressed in her elegant suit, she saw him leaning against the wall. He looked different, tired, angry, broke. "Emily," he said softly, almost nervously. She didn't stop, but he followed. "Please, I need to talk." Emily turned slowly. "You used to laugh at me, Ethan." He swallowed hard. "I know, I was stupid. But please, I'm in trouble. I owe people money. I need help." She raised a brow. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who can help," he whispered. For a moment, she remembered the boy who once mocked her when she cried. The brother who stood laughing when she was slapped. Now he stood trembling before her. "I have a meeting," Emily said coldly, and walked away. Ethan's voice cracked behind her. "Emily, please." But Emily didn't look back. Olivia came next. She sent her a message first, then calls, then showed up outside her apartment. Her makeup was smudged, her clothes wrinkled, the glamorous princess had disappeared. "Emily," she said in a broken voice. "Please let me in." Emily didn't move. She stood at the door, her face unreadable. "Why are you here?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I messed up. I thought my life would be easy. But everything's falling apart. I can't pay my rent." "I can't," Emily interrupted sharply. "When I needed someone to believe in me, where were you, Olivia?" Olivia lowered her gaze. "I was stupid. I was cruel." "I know." Emily tilted her head slightly. "And now you expect me to forget all that?" Olivia wiped her tears. "I'm not asking for everything. Just help." Emily looked at her for a long time. But then she stepped aside. Not to let her in, but to close the door slowly. "Go home, Olivia," she whispered coldly. The door clicked shut. Olivia fell to her knees in the hallway, sobbing like a child. Robert and Susan were the last to come. They arrived together one evening, uninvited, standing in the lobby of her building. Their faces carried years of pride, now replaced by regret. When Emily came home from work, she saw them waiting. "Emily," Robert said softly, "can we talk?" She didn't answer. She walked past them, pressed the elevator button, and stepped inside. But before the doors closed, Susan's voice cracked. "Please, we have nowhere else to go." Emily froze. The doors shut. Upstairs, she stood alone in her apartment. Her heart didn't soften. It burned with everything she had lived through. Every slap, every insult, every ignored birthday. This wasn't a random fight. This was a lifetime of pain. The next night, Emily agreed to meet them. She didn't do it out of love. She did it out of control. They sat in her luxurious living room. The same people who once said she would never become anything. Susan looked around the apartment, amazed and uncomfortable. Robert sat stiffly. Ethan and Olivia stood near the wall like strangers. Emily stood tall in front of them, wearing the confidence they never gave her. Susan spoke first. "We're sorry, Emily." Emily raised a brow. "Sorry for what?" "For everything," Susan stammered. "We were wrong about you. We shouldn't have treated you like that." Ethan added quickly, "I was young. I didn't know what I was doing." Olivia wiped her eyes. "We were jealous, Emily. You were always stronger." Emily laughed softly, but it wasn't joy. It was a laugh filled with years of pain finally finding a voice. "Stronger?" she said. "You called me useless. Every single day. You made me believe I was nothing. And now that I built everything without you, now you see strength?" Robert leaned forward. "Emily, please. We need help. We're drowning." Emily's eyes turned sharp. "When I was drowning, where were you?" No one spoke. She took a slow step forward, her voice calm but deadly. "You ignored my birthdays. You laughed when I succeeded. You humiliated me in front of strangers. You called me a mistake." Susan's lips trembled. "We're your family." "No," Emily said, her voice cutting like glass. "Family protects you. Family stands by you. You were my nightmare." Ethan took a step closer. "Emily, please. Don't do this." She stared at him. "Do what, Ethan? Be like you? Beg, cry, break?" Olivia sobbed. "We just want a second chance." Emily tilted her head. "I gave you years. You gave me nothing." The room went silent. Emily walked toward the door and opened it wide. Her voice was steady. "Get out," Susan gasped. "Emily, get out," she said again, louder this time. The same girl who once begged for their love was now the woman who didn't need it. Ethan lowered his eyes. Olivia whispered something no one could hear. Robert slowly stood up. One by one, they walked out. Susan turned at the door with tearful eyes. "Please, Emily. We're still your family." Emily's eyes didn't soften. "No, you lost that right long ago." The door closed behind them. Emily stood in the middle of her silent apartment. For a second, the weight of years sat on her chest. But then, it lifted. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply felt free. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't about screaming or hurting them back. It was about living the life they said she could never have. They had finally come begging. And she had finally said the words she had kept buried for years. Get out. Maggie came over the next morning with breakfast. She hugged Emily tightly. I'm proud of you, Emily whispered against her shoulder. I did it, Maggie. Yes, Maggie smiled softly. You did. Emily didn't go back to that house again. She didn't call them. She didn't check on them. She didn't forgive. She moved forward. She grew more. Her company gave her bigger projects. People respected her. Friends admired her strength. And deep down, Emily knew she wasn't that little girl anymore. She was the storm they never saw coming. Months later, Susan sat in the old living room, holding a magazine with Emily's face on the cover. Robert sat silently. Ethan and Olivia stared at the page, but none of them said a word. They realized too late what they had thrown away. Emily was no longer their weak shadow. She was untouchable. Never underestimate someone you call weak. One day, they might rise so high that your apologies won't matter anymore. What would you do if your own family treated you like Emily? Would you forgive them or shut the door like she did?